All right, so I think we can start. Yeah, I don't actually see the number of people who already joined. Oh, okay. So yeah, my teammates, they said that we already have around 15 people, but I think yeah, more people will be joining as we go. So yeah, welcome everybody. It's so good to have you with us. My name is Leo and I'm a managing partner at Albato. So we're a white label integration platform. And today we also have a very special guest with us, Yarif Yadan.
All right, so
Welcome.
I think we can start.
Oh,
Hey,
sorry, that's I was echoing myself. Sorry. Yeah, so Yarif, thank you very much for for joining. And yeah, just a couple of words about Yarif. So Yarif is a founding partner at Ellipsis. Yeah, please correct me if I mispronounce the name.
all
Yeah,
good.
so so it's a venture company that is focused entirely on AI startups. So they're investing in dozens of promising AI startups. And already successfully invested in dozens of AI companies that are fast growing. Yeah, and also Yarif has over almost 17 years of experience in Google. Yeah, and also in a role specifically dedicated to AI. So Yarif used to be a senior director of product management at Google Cloud Gen AI. So basically, that's a quick intro. Yeah, Yarif, maybe you can also add a couple of words about yourself, just so we can get the ball rolling, and then I'll run through the agenda and through the topics
Yeah, sure.
for this
Yeah,
session.
yeah. I'm originally from Israel. I spent 10 years in the Israeli startup scene, then as an engineering manager, then moved to Google as a product manager. Got excited about AI around 2015, was among the team that started Google Assistant and Google Lens. Then later on moved to Cloud AI, led conversational and Gen AI. And yeah, the last year and a half, we've been investing in early stage startups. And also in our fund, we don't actually recruit and hire junior people. We write our own AI automation. So first, we believe that's the right way, that's the right structure, but also that's the way for us to be at the edge of what models and tools and platforms can do. So I have a first-hand experience on how to automate, what are some of the painful things, and what's the value that you can get.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, again, it's we're so happy to, have such a seasoned AI expert today with us live. So basically, yeah, I think we can get started. Yeah, and we today we're going to cover a few topics. Yeah, of course, 100% related to the rise of AI. Yeah, and just sort of to give a forward, yeah, maybe last year, we were more like playing around with AI. A lot of people even like experienced founders in my network, they were still on the fence, like hesitating whether they should do anything about AI, or maybe it's not something worth chasing. Yeah, but I think this year, yeah, that stuff is getting serious. Yeah, so basically now, when you just take a look at what's happening in the tech industry, yeah, and specifically in the SaaS industry, so I mean, it's all decided for us. Yeah, so we're now everyone like became a part of that AI race. Yeah, it's only a matter of time. So basically, yeah, a lot of people think so now it's like either adopt AI or you'll be out of the game. So yeah, and probably the first sort of question we want to explore is that shift of paradigm. So basically, we're if talking about SaaS specifically, Yarif, what do you think? Like, what is the bare minimum of AI capabilities and features that users, I mean, SaaS customers, now expect out of the box in a SaaS product? Yeah. And whether it's something that that really affects buying decisions this year. So for example, if some people they're comparing platforms, yeah, and there's one platform who says, hey, we're AI driven, we have AI features, AI capabilities, and another one is not that, sort of AI packed. So do you think it really like makes a difference, yeah, in terms of buying decisions and in terms of like cents and dollars?
I I think like there is always a spectrum, right? On the one hand, for 2 years now, I think companies have been using kind of the models interfaces, right? The OpenAI, Enterprise Edition, Glean, Perplexity Enterprise. These kind of tools are actually getting traction. And I think like if you're thinking what's the experience, the expectations over there, I think that the expectancy is that actually they do something that was impossible before and is a huge time saver. And it's fine if it has some of the shortcomings of AI, something like you need to review it. You're not blindly using it, right? Like you check it from time to time. I think there is like the next wave of where you are saying, I want to automate or delegate or have it like, work completely. I think over there, people are still are not. I think the majority of the market is not trusting it yet. I think there is definitely an expectation now from every SaaS company that you should use AI. Like you shouldn't make me as a user work and do stuff manually that until 2 years that was fine. I expect you to actually use AI under the tools, to extract information, to accept natural language input, to generate materials, right? Like, so I think like it's definitely an expectation that AI will be integrated in any SaaS product. And I think the expectancy is more and more so. I think that the idea of agent is starting to be familiar in organizations. I think some of us that are dealing all the time with AI think that everyone knows. I don't think everyone knows yet, but the word is getting out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, just to make sure I get it right, basically, again, for people who are willing to pay money, yeah, for a product, it's a question whether, let's say, if there's one platform, which is packed with AI features and capabilities, and there's another one, yeah, who is, let's say, under AI'd, yeah, so to
Yeah.
speak. So for me as a customer or as a prospect, it's a question of, hey, it's like I'm gonna have to work more. Yeah. So if I don't have AI agents, if I don't
Yeah.
have AI assistants like, implemented within the platform, it means that I will have to do more, let's say, hands-on work. Yeah. And your platform will be,
Yeah.
let's say, less efficient for me or for my
Yes.
business. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
yes, I don't think people care about like if there is AI necessarily, but I
Mm-hmm.
just think like, once you used AI as an helper, like, I will not say, I used all the automation, so all your platform and also your competitors. I love your platform, by the way. I think it's super well designed. But for example, when I started, I take Nathan, before and after the assistant, it was so hard to find help before. So once you experience, even with a simple feature of online help using AI, it's a total different. Canva, before and after the AI feature, it's like night and day. So I just think that once you see the AI feature, email, this ability to generate email on the fly, or that now I have like summaries on the right of all the threads. So I think like these are features that very quickly you cannot do without. And I think like the way we defined, back in the days, we were trying to define what is product market fit. And the definition of product market fit, the ones that I love more, is like how much will you cry if we take it away from you? And I think these AI features are becoming high product market fit because it's like super annoying going back after you had this experience. So I think it is becoming, but I do think, like, again, and I think this is like where actually the question how it relates to products like yours. I've been using Albato, and then I know that Albato I can trust. If it works once, it will always work. It will work super scalably well, and I will not be surprised by the bill that I'm getting at the end of the month. These
Yeah.
are three things that for certain AI features, not all of them meet that bar. Okay, once it works, it doesn't all work for everything, and I'm not sure why. Scaling is also tricky, and also the pricing is a little bit of a what do these credits even mean kind of thing. So I think like we're definitely not at like, hey, is this hype? But we're definitely also, is that SaaS mature?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree that, for let's say this year for average customer, AI can be a synonym of efficiency, right? So if it's got an AI, yeah, it should be more efficient, whether like directly, so I
Yeah.
can get my job done faster, yeah, or even if it's like AI under the hood of that platform, which I as a customer I can't see it,
Yeah.
yeah, but it kind of gives me, let's say the reason to believe that this product is probably, more efficient, more scalable, or
Yeah.
maybe even cheaper because they're using AI for, their internal, I don't know, development or let's say for their features. Yeah. So for
Yeah.
me,
It's
it might be more like cheaper or cost
yeah.
effective. Yeah.
But honestly, I think it's hard to miss because it adds a dimension that before was like just impossible, right? So again, going back to automation flow tools, the moment you can actually put there an LLM call as part of that automation, just take the automations to the next place and make the product 10x more useful and apply to many more use cases. So I think like it's really hard to miss when good AI is being put into a product. Like, okay, oh wow, this is like yeah, and it's even little thing, I'm creating now a slide decks and I can create my own images. Before that, I need to find images, legal images, and it's like a small feature, right? Like, but but it makes like, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and there's also a trend that, I've been seeing all over my network. Yeah, that a lot of people say that with AI, you can actually get an MVP much cheaper and much faster. Yeah, so
Yes.
let's say, and there's a major shift of paradigm. Yeah, that before, for example, if you want to build an MVP for your product, yeah, you would need to raise, let's say, at least, like 500K in angel investments or seed investments. Then you'd have to hire, developers, like a robust team to build a prototype, yeah, to get it to the market. Yeah, but now a lot of people combining, tools like Cursor and, and some also like Canva to quickly build a design and, the front end for the prototype. Yeah, they can get it much faster, like maybe in less than a couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's say 10x cheaper.
Yeah.
So
I
do you think that's true, by the way? Because you have a
yeah.
very good overlook at the, let's say the the early stage startups. So do you see
Yeah.
that it's really helps accelerate
Yeah.
the delivery of new products to the market?
So I think AI contracted timelines in so many ways. One, like you're saying, actually software writing is just much faster. You need actually we're seeing you need much less people, less experienced that can actually generate code much faster using the different software tools. Two, especially it was always so hard to find good UX designers and good front-end developers. They were always the bottleneck. And now actually, especially all the vibing, actually definitely even beyond prototype to some extent, you can actually ship some stuff out there. Also marketing materials, websites and other stuff. But also back in the days, the only way for you to move faster was to code faster or scale your development time. Of course, then there is always some taxation. Now, just because the models are getting better, this also accelerates things. Like, you're just using the same model, just a new version, and suddenly things you couldn't do before or you were struggling to ship are actually good quality. So I think like also the timeline that actually it takes to make good feature or the next version of features are much easier, and also to be there is so much competition, right? So actually so the pace. So I think like overall for sure we're seeing that smaller teams can do more with less. uh, uh, um, and you can actually generate a very decent result across the board. Yes, also this is clearly a multiplier again. It's not the magic of everything, and you cannot delegate to 10 different agents necessarily that will do the work blindly. Um, but there is a lot of work, and we also need to remember that many times a lot of the work that a founder needs to do is not building the product, it's actually raising funds, it's hiring people, it's marketing, reaching out to partners. And these are also things that actually you can automate to a great extent. Whether it's generating docs, summarizing docs, generating emails, cold emails, all of these things are also right, generating marketing materials. These are also things that were super time consuming and resource consuming that are now automated to a very large degree.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing your perspective. This makes a lot of sense. Um, Another question is, have you seen any, let's say, real life examples where agents made a real impact? Let's say if we're talking about SaaS products, do you have anything on the top of your head?
No, actually, actually us, right? So like actually, when we said to start the fund, we said, hey, we actually don't want to hire junior members. We want, because we think, at some point you are talking how great our partners are, but then all the work is done by junior people. We said, hey, we want to only do us, but actually automate ourselves with AI. And automation is like both on finding deal sourcing, but also actually doing the actual investment process. So, for example, the moment someone sends us a deck, a pitch deck, within 5 minutes, we actually, kind of blow up the deck using some vision models, and then we generate kind of summary of all the statements from the deck. Then we run a deep research, a critical analysis to verify everything and to complement with additional facts that are not mentioned in the deck. Then we're running a bunch of agents. There is a team expert, there is a product expert, market expert, risk expert. Each one of these is actually generating its own section, and then there is kind of the manager that looks. If it's unhappy with the result, it sends it back to the expert until it actually within 5 minutes we have a full investment committee scorecard presented with a recommendation whether we should invest or not. And of course, we don't invest based on that. But when we are now having the first meeting with the companies, we're like so informed, we're so for it actually tells us, recommends also questions that we should ask. And of course, we transcribe all the meetings. Every meeting is actually turned into a Q&A, like what is the company, what does it do, blah, all of that. And then we run the entire process again, but this time with the additional meeting notes. So actually, we have this kind of rolling investment committee, a document from the first meeting on, and it doesn't replace us, and we don't follow it blindly, but it's like it makes the whole process a much higher quality, and we couldn't have done it, I think, like with like a lot of resources. So definitely a game changer in the ability to run a fund with only general partners and still maintain, I think, like very high quality processes. So that's like really something I've been firsthand. And also the automation of it, like, when we started first building it, it was like, writing our own stuff, scratch maybe a little bit with LangChain. Then afterward, we started using some of the frameworks, and we definitely used also some of the no code low code for certain things. But to be honest, a lot of the parts now can actually be done with a good model in a single prompt, right? So actually things are shifting as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing all this. That's pretty mind-blowing. You're definitely ahead of the curve, with applying AI to your daily work. So, yeah, that really sounds great. Yeah, just, a little, let's say, provocative question. Yeah, so uh, what do you think, what is the reason for some AI features or AI agents failing? Even though, they're technically sound, they're built, the right way, but still, for example, they fail, they don't add any extra value or any efficiency to customers or, to the team. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think there is always, it goes to good product design. I think the principles of good product design never change. They just have kind of a different lens, right? So like the first question is always, are you building a solution looking for a problem? Right? Like, because these things can do so many cool things, like, are you really solving where the big problems, where the choking point, where the limiting factor is, or are you just like basically doing something that is nice to have but doesn't impact? Because at the end, you need to impact metrics that the business cares deeply about, either top level line, bottom line, or some other metric. I think the second thing, like that products fail is because of poor product quality. And I think in agent, there is like, different dimensions of poor product quality, right? And then at the end, you cannot trust it and people are afraid to run it and the other thing is, of course, is it integrated as it should, or does it take too much work to actually, get it right? Maybe when it runs, it does magic, but the effort required to make it run is so big, or the ceiling is so high in terms of getting it to run that like people just never get that. Right? There are so many great products out there, just like too complex or confusing to use, and then people go to simpler, not as good product. Right? That's many products kind of manage to build that. Then there is, of course, the whole issue at the end, why people try it but don't scale it. So one could be all this and the other thing is just like price. Like actually, definitely frontier models are quite expensive depending on the transaction, right? So if you are automating something with a frontier model on something that is low value transaction and very large scale, the math will just not work, right? I would love it to run, but like I cannot afford it, right? This is like, sure, I would love to drive a Lamborghini to do a pizza delivery. It would be fun, but it doesn't work. And the car is great. The problem is not that the car is not great, or that will not do the job. It will do the job better than anything, but I can only afford the scooter. Um, so I think like a lot of the problems, and there is, it is super early on, right? Like we're learning, and I think like a lot of then there is like kind of the tools that you need to, if it's not a product but a development, right? Like people don't know how to measure quality, how to create these data sets, what should like, what does good mean, what does bad mean. And also, I think, like, honestly, a lot of people have no idea how the process should look like. I think, like, now that we're trying to automate process, you come to the company and ask them, what do you do to define? Nobody has an idea. What data are you using to decide if it's P1, P2, P3? Where is the data residing? No one has an idea, right? I think there is so many flows that are in people's heads and are so random and so ill-defined. And now that you are trying to digitize, you need to actually explicitly make it, and people have no idea. I think that's another problem that has nothing to do with the tools, but just like because the way that we run today business is also extremely imprecise, non-reproducible, and whatnot. And I actually think this is the opportunity. Like I actually think that if you just take AI and just like start thinking more maturely about the process you're running, even without automating, you already become like significantly better. Yeah. So this is like rambling a bunch of things that can go wrong.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually we're 100% on the same page in this one. And yeah, so I totally agree that just, the fact that we now have AI, yeah, is like it's not going to change things overnight. Yeah, so if you have poor processes, if you don't have, for example, if you haven't defined success metrics for your AI agents, yeah, because for example, this year, yeah, I'm going to share just a little of, let's say, what's going on Albato. Yeah, so we hired a head of AI transformation. Yeah, and basically, again, this is maybe a tip for everybody, listening to us that, and what we hear from the market that, in 2025, this probably has to be like a dedicated role within each company. I mean, within each tech company. Yeah, because what we learned that first we were trying to, let's say, bring AI to the marketing department, to the sales team, and we tried to build some things, ourselves. Like, for example, a sales rep tried to build some AI agents. Yeah, but it didn't work. So we decided that it has to be like, a dedicated full-time person. Yeah, that will be in charge of, let's say, this AI transformation for our company, who will be exploring new AI models, testing things, and making sure that agents are, let's say, executing the right tasks, yeah, and really bring efficiency. And yeah, basically what we saw is that the very first step before even building before even starting to build an agent, yeah, is we really need to, do a good job of, let's say, cleaning up our data, yeah, streamlining our processes because it's like always garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, so if we're gonna feed our agents with, poor, inconsistent data, then basically, it's not gonna do a favor for anybody. Yeah. So, and I agree that, yeah, it's all about basically having a very structured process. Yeah, a clean data that is verified. Yeah, that is, and then the agents can really make that impact. So, yeah, this is what we saw in our experience. Yeah, so now jumping to another, hot trend that we've been seeing on the market is MCP, Model Context Protocol. Yeah, so a lot of people, think it's a game changer for SaaS products. So how do you think will MCP affect regular SaaS users and teams? And basically, is it another shift of paradigm, or do you think it will maybe disrupt some companies and they will maybe cease to exist? So
Uh,
how do you envision this?
so to be honest, I was actually waiting for MCP for quite a while to happen, um, because I think that was clear to me that this is something that must happen. Like, it just doesn't make sense that everyone rewrites integration with tools, definitely with the ones that are mostly used. I also, so I think, like, MCP is definitely a game changer in the sense that it allows scaling. I like, if people before were worried, hey, this agent does magic, but will I be able to connect it to my companies, to all the tools and what's the work? Now there is a very clear answer to that. You can actually check whether, support exists or doesn't support. You can have a very clear estimation of what would be the effort to support it. I think that MCPs, whether in the MCP or in other standard, will expand more. So I think, like, I think agents will start with kind of an MCP. Like, agents will also declare, here's what I can do, here's at what price, here's what is my availability, latency, my compliance, right? So I think, like, as software can start advertise what they can do and under what terms, you can start automating this process of running stuff. So basically you can give a, hey, I want to do this very complex task, and then have a very large and capable model break it into the different pieces, look or maybe even bid against the different type of service providers based on the criteria, whether you are price sensitive, time sensitive, quality sensitive. I think they will link to reviews that you can actually verify. So I think this is all contributing to the automation of software. And a lot of things that before that were disrupted because someone needs to interfere, I think this is creating just a very streamlined automation. And the cool thing is that in the past, when you created standards, semantics were very rigid. But now, because the LLMs can understand natural language, actually solving the semantics of the fields, it's a much easier problem. So actually, the fields can be very descriptive, like in this case, right? If you needed to define before LLMs what an API of an ERP product does, it was an impossible task. So yes, I think this is an important step, and of course, it doesn't solve everything. Um, I think to the end user, of course, it's invisible. It's more of a developer and a software architecture detail. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, thanks a lot. Do you think that MCP is essential for, let's say, building a full-fledged AI agent that can execute jobs? Yeah. So, for example, I will, explain. So last year, yeah, the SaaS industry and everybody was so hell-bent on, building and implementing AI assistants. So, for example, yeah, if I have my product, I have my website, so I'm gonna have like, a super cool support assistant that can answer any question. Yeah. So it will be like, hooked up to my knowledge base. to my, I don't know, ticketing platform. Yeah, so last year the paradigm was like AI can answer questions, yeah, and can, let's say, give recommendations. Yeah, but this year we're, let's say, coming into a new paradigm where AI can actually get things done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can execute complex, multi-step processes. It can get jobs done. Yeah, but to get the jobs done, do we really need to, that MCP layer, or
Yeah.
is it for something else?
So, in theory, you can come and say, hey, I don't need MCP, I will write the tool, right? Like, so I think like, to launch something with known integrations, you don't need MCP. But if you want to come and say, hey, I want to be the agent that even if it doesn't do action, it answers questions, but it can integrate with any ERP you have, right? Like, so now it has MCP, right? Like it's so easy. You can do an abstraction layer and then connect to this, right? Like connecting to these things. The other question is like, okay, you built it, you built your own tool integration, but now a new version comes. So like, how long does it take your agent to connect? Now be with MCP, it's on the provider side and you get it. So I think again, like, it doesn't, definitely at the beginning, it doesn't solve anything that you cannot hard code yourself and create tools. At the end, the details are, devil is in the details on the quality of how well, did you define the tool and ability to parse input and output. Because you need to have, for simple stuff, sure, but like for space where you guys built a ton of connectors, it like, you need domain knowledge to do that, right? And no one does it better, I think, than the provider. And by the way, one of the problems with MCP today, that a lot of it is actually third-party open source. People just wrote connectors based on APIs, and it's actually pretty crappy. Um, so I think like over time, scalability, time to support the next version, ability to support a broad set of providers, I think this is an enabler and allows company to focus on what their product does best rather than try to connect with the entire world. Yeah, so I think
Hmm.
that.
Just like, to summarize, it's like a connectivity layer, yeah, that
Yeah,
helps
yeah,
AI agents and AI
yeah,
ecosystem,
yeah.
talk more efficiently with, let's say, the
With
API
systems.
layer,
And
right?
and in the world, in AI, context is king, right? Like so actually the more context you can get, the better your connectivity layer is, the better result. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Like what you cannot extract or do you can't do, right? So I think it is like, it's an important function. Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. And that leads us to another question, which is very sensitive for us as we're an API integration platform.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, how will AI agents and MCP coexist with API integrations? So, do you think they will replace guys like us, API platforms, or conversely, enhance them? Yeah, and we'll create, like, let's say, a new synergy, yeah, and
Yeah.
will give more value to customers.
Yeah, I think definitely at least in the near future, I think like actually the thing complement, right? So we also do automation and some of the stuff we wrote as agents, some of the stuff, we wrote as code, some of the stuff we're running as automation, and we're just like finding that so for example, we have an intern and the intern doesn't know how to code. So actually, yeah, doing using a tool like yours, just give her the superpowers and actually being able to access from within the tool models that then connect via the connectors. That's a huge asset. So I think like the ability to have no code, low code, very clear UI that you can actually see the process, and all the added values of a platform like yours that is super efficient, super cheap to use. Like, why would I move it to an agent? Like for many of the flows, like an agent at best will give me the same result with like more confluence. Yeah, I think there are certain things that agents can do, and doing it in a tool is super hard. Um, so I think, and I still also do think that having these integrations is still very useful, and you can actually expose them as MCP in your own product. Right? This is what some of the players are doing. And I think actually using our people are using like this kind of API products as an MCP hub. So actually, I think for you, it's an amazing opportunity to expose, or I think Zapier did now, like, kind of something like that. Um, so I think like it's a spectrum, the same way we had like, multiple languages, C is good at some stuff, C++, Java, Python, right? Um, uh, but I do think definitely that these agentic systems, something that runs on itself and can do complex stuff, brings new capabilities that is very hard to define in a very complex flow. Yeah.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. So, just thinking at, let's say, possible workflows and tasks and processes, where do you think AI agents can really drive value? Yeah,
Yeah.
and let's say completely automate a workflow or let's say a
Yeah.
complex task. And where are the things that, let's say, we still need the good old-fashioned
Yeah.
automation flows? Yeah,
So
because
I
like
think,
you said, why would you move like
yeah.
there are certain, things in certain processes, yeah, where, using automated flows still makes more sense than just completely
Yeah.
offloading it to an autonomous
Yeah.
agentic AI. So where does this border, let's say,
Yeah.
lies and where's the line?
I'll give you an example, right? So, for example, we wanted to build a tool where I can give it a list of companies. And the list can be a website with a list of companies. It can be an RSS feed. It can be a PDF that I got in email about an event, like who presented. It can be a screenshot of something, someone saw something and took a screenshot. And then it can be any input. I want now to extract the company from that input. Then I want for each company to now do some searches and extract information from the web, find who are the founders, find their LinkedIn, put them into our Airtable and start some, reaching out or whatever, right? So for the first part, you definitely want to use some kind of agentic LLM, hey, you are giving like, this high level thing, you're giving something, here is what you need to do, right? And basically until the stage that it creates a structured kind of JSON. And now I want to do a certain set of steps that are very clear to me, that I want to repeat the same time, some very specific integration with the Airtable. I want to be able to very easy debug if there is any problems, repeatable, and then that connects to an automation. So I think like when the algorithm is kind of the old way, very deterministic, you know what you want, very accurate, repeatable, right? And you care about it. Like the agent at best would do the same thing, but I think more expensive. So why would I do it? Right? There is no added value I don't need agentic thoughts. I don't need the ability to handle, I already solved the issue of taking unstructured and making it into structured. Like even to be honest, like even when I got the list of companies, at first I used an agent to go on each company now and like, but then sometimes they skip, sometimes they do nonsense. So actually, when I get that, I went to an automation, and within the automation, I said, okay, for each item, do this now sub step, and that works better, right? So I think these are the kinds, again, when you want unstructured data to structured, when you want an open-ended problem where there are multiple ways to do it, and you want to generate some kind of a result, I would go to the agentic. When you have a certain steps, that now you have a structured, very clear input that you want to get it through some pipeline and do things and send emails and stuff. Like I think that the tools that you guys built is like the perfect thing and like so easy and can be used by both technical and non-technical people on the team.
Yeah, thanks. I totally agree. And I was just, listening to you, and that really resonates with my line of thought. Yeah, because let's say, yeah, if you let AI agents to just, handle some workflows or some tasks independently, 100%. Yeah, of course, like let's say, the good side of it is that they're highly adaptive to new variables. Yeah. So let's say they can learn, yeah, and adapt to some, let's say, unpredicted inputs, yeah, that the standard automated
Yeah.
flows, yeah, they can do that, yeah, and they kind of simulate the human-like behavior, yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
But there's a flip side of it, yeah, that they're might be less reliable, yeah, and might produce unpredicted outcomes,
Yeah.
yeah, that isn't always a good thing, yeah. So for example, I'll just share a couple of more thoughts. In the last few weeks, we've been running a lot of interviews with our customers, yeah, because at Albado we're also building our own platform for AI agents, yeah. So and it's coming very soon, hopefully by midsummer. So and by the way, yeah, guys in the chat, if you want to be like early testers, yeah, just let us know in the chat. Yeah, we'll include you in the list. But the thing was that it depends largely on the use case. Yeah. So for example, if you want to let agent generate some ideas for blog posts, yeah, or do some, let's say, copywriting job or marketing job, yeah, then maybe it's okay to just let it run, autonomously. Yeah, because every time it's about risks. Yeah. So the other day I saw that metrics, the platform Crew AI. Yeah. So they have a very cool, let's say, framework for decision making. Yeah. And it's a simple metrics where you have precision. So let's say if you need a more precise result, yeah, then you should use like more deterministic approach, which is flows. Yeah. Automations. Yeah, if you want it to be less deterministic, yeah, more creative, then agents, is a better choice. But there's also the other scale is risks. Yeah. So when you're bringing more and more agents to your business, yeah, you should keep in mind, let's say, some risks around reputation, financial losses, customer experience. Yeah. The other day we were talking to a client and they wanted to automate a pretty, complex process of refunds. Yeah. So, and this is exactly where they're combining agents and flows. So agents can, let's say, evaluate the customer request for refund. Yeah. So it can classify it. It can say whether, it should be refunded or not. But then there's always first human in the loop. Yeah. So let's say if, the refund is that the amount of refund is larger than X. Yeah. There's that IHTL step kicks in where humans should approve this. Yeah. Before the refund can be processed. Yeah. And then there's a standard flow like sending a notification to the customer, adding the refund to the database, to the invoicing platform and stuff like that. And this isn't run by agents. Yeah. Because this part is too precise. Yeah. And it's too like hard wired, hard scripted. Yeah, and bringing agents to that part could, mess things up. Yeah, because again, that would be sometimes too, let's say, unpredictable. Yeah, and too creative. So that's also one of the takeaways that we learned from speaking to our customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's always like a combination of risk and precision. Yeah, and you got to be very thoughtful when you're bringing AI agent to your process or to your automation, where this specific task falls on that matrix. Yeah, so if it's high risk, high precision, then you need like a combination of flows, agents, human in the loop. If it's low precision, low risk, then you can, let's say, offload it to an agent or a crew of multiple agents with little control. Yeah. So yeah, it all depends on, I think, on those things. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're gonna have another question, and maybe we'll jump to the Q&A session if we have any questions from the audience. So thinking about this year, yeah, and maybe a little bit about next year. So what do you think? What is it like one thing or one trend? Yeah, again, thinking about SaaS products and SaaS teams and AI. What do you think one thing that they're underinvesting in and that they should, sort of focus more on it or just, pay more attention to some rising trend that isn't that isn't that obvious yet, so to speak.
Um, isn't obvious. Um, I think like you, well, I think like I think there are two groups. One is I think there are still many companies that I find out that like are not putting enough resources to really understand deeply how to use models, what's possible, the different types of models running on device. Like really, because I think like really getting that muscle of using AI in production. I think that's like, one thing where I think like, the biggest risk for companies like, so and I'm telling people, start by using it in your own back office or other stuff. Like I still see like, companies that the company itself doesn't use AI, but the people use AI all around, but the company itself did not develop the muscle. What does it mean to start putting AI-based processes? I think that's the one thing I would tell.
Sorry. Hmm.
The other
When
thing
you
is, I
say,
think like, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
before we
yeah.
move on. So when you say muscle, do you mean like let's say the tech part? So,
In order to if you want to use AI in production, quality has this whole different, the product quality is the AI quality. You need to know, like what we decided, what is good, what is bad, how do you measure the thing. What is available, in what ways can I use it, what APIs, what can it do, how does pricing work, so I think like that it's a whole a new domain area, but I think that overall I think the DevOps and app management is still so up in the air. I think like because people are like people are not yet really deploying it in an offloaded way. They don't have yet the problem of how do I manage it at scale. And okay, I have now something that works on this prompt, and now a new model comes. How can I efficiently see whether should I change to the new model to improve quality or to improve how much I'm paying? How do I find where, which cases are failing? Where should I
yeah.
improve? So I think
Hmm.
like all of this, like, uh, every time that a
Infrastructure.
new stack came into, I think it's like kind of app management. I think it's like quality and production management. I think people are still blind on what's going on. A lot of people are kind of eyeballing it. That's the only way. They don't have deep understanding of what are the real issues that their customers are facing when they are using it. They don't have a clear process of given an issue how to fix it. I don't think people thought deeply on how to manage, kind of prompts and models in production when, an MCP, right? Because things are now changing under the hood. A new version of this app changes, the MCP breaks. So I think like all of this thing of managing AI in production is still super early. And either you have companies that are saying, okay, we are building it, and of course you shouldn't build it. You should build your product. You shouldn't build your DevOps and your app management. Or you have companies, oh, we're just trying to make it work first. I think on both ends, one, it works, and you want to deploy, you'll get stuck on these things. And part of it, of course, by the way, is security and price control and all of, and map budget, like because AI is kind of both a technology, but now it's becoming a worker, and you want the same way you're managing headcount, and you want to make sure that headcount budget makes sense, and right, like how do you manage that? Do you have too many agents doing work that you should put budget elsewhere? So I think all of this, like at the moment, is very immature, and I think like in 2026, I expect. A lot of that because people will say, okay, I want to deploy it in production. I see the value, but I just saw I have these critical pieces missing.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and yeah, circling back to what we discussed in the very beginning, yeah, at least that in my perspective, that should be a dedicated person within a company. Yeah, that is like yeah, we called it head of AI transformation. Yeah, but it can be like an AI engineer or a guy that is really deep in the weeds, yeah, that keeps up with the stack, the infrastructure, yeah, knows how different LLM models work, yeah, and which model is the best for, specific task or specific domain. So I think that maybe another trend is that it's going to be a dedicated person or even a team within a company, yeah, that is responsible for basically,
Yeah,
implementing AI in the most efficient way possible,
yeah,
not just toying around with it, yeah, but really being, very deep into the stack and tech stack and infrastructure and everything that you've mentioned. Yeah,
yeah,
because I hardly believe that you can just, let's say have someone from the marketing or the product team, do all that. So
yeah,
because they might not have the bandwidth, they might not have the knowledge because still it's technical. Yeah,
yeah,
it's technical, even though AI is becoming more and more commoditized. But what you just said, if you want to run it efficiently, yeah, if you want, let's say, to keep track on the token usage and make sure that the agents are running, are paying off. I think it has to be a really, really technical person.
yeah.
But
I
of course, working hand in hand with business.
yeah.
Yeah, like
I
I
think
said, it's very important. Yeah.
I think it's the same as like, it used to be mobile then cloud. I think you will start with a team of experts that are kind of, they are the pioneers and the owners in the company. And after 2, 3 years, then that, knowledge dissipates in the organization and every subgroup now has its own. I think that's usually, but yeah, you must have a dedicated group and a dedicated effort that learns and spreads it, yeah, and kind of carries the weight until the organization itself is ready for it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And what do you think is maybe again, it's a silly question, but what's the best way to, let's say, improve and educate your AI agents? Yeah, because there's a uh, let's say a data set that you can feed to AI agents to make them, to improve their decision making and stuff like that. So should it again come from business or should it be somehow automated? So do you have any framework in mind? Because AI agents, they're not static. Yeah, they
Yeah.
should evolve. Yeah, they should self learn. So what is the best way to make sure that they're learning the right way and they're always improving,
Yeah.
their decision making?
So first, like, they don't learn by default and automatically, right? Like you need to do, so what we used to do, we used to have kind of what we call a feedback loop. So basically you need to very design it in a way that you actually have enough logging and data collection so you can actually collect what's happening in production. And if you don't have access,
And
you
feed
need to
it
have some.
back. Hmm.
Right, like yeah, and then have a very clear way to analyze which are failures, which are successes, cluster the failures because you don't want to do point fixing. That's the wrong way. You really want to take that step back and understand. Am I doing here a new use case? So then you can actually cluster. Is the problem that we are missing connection? We got the context wrong. We got the search wrong. We got the reasoning wrong. That the model is too weak, or maybe the model, goes unnecessarily. We don't have security, right? So you need, I think, like the key important thing, I think, is actually because you can do so much with synthetic data. You really need to make sure that you have some way to collect at least some of your production data and have that feedback loop and make sure that you have a way. By the way, you also need to invest in retraining, improving, and how do you do that, right? Like, it depends on how you implemented the agent. Because if you're using a vanilla, so it's not maybe fine tuning or improving the model, you just give it more different instructions or more examples, right? So, but the idea of a feedback loop, I think, is critical, and a quality mindset, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and also maybe, I'm gonna say a thing that is like I'm gonna be like Captain Obvious. But what I learned recently is that it's better to actually let's say create a crew of multiple AI agents and each of them handling, let's say, a small task. Yeah, rather than trying to
Yeah, of
create,
course.
like a master agent with a, humongous prompt, and you want it to do everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, another.
Actually,
Mhm.
we are doing that very intentionally, but from a different reason. So whenever I want to do a task, I first go and create a complex task, run it on the best model I can just to see that I have the task, and it can do it because that's easy. And I actually, whenever I write the prompt, the first thing I do is I ask the model, please improve this prompt. And then I get a really good prompt. But then I take that prompt and I actually exactly break it
Break
to
it up.
different pieces.
Yeah.
And now I
Hmm.
can give it to a very smaller model or sometimes even local model. And then I can take the model, please run this subtask and run as many times as you need until it's perfect. Because while the models are not very good on the first try, if you do second and third, like feeding them, here's what I asked you to do, here's what you did, please fix, please generate additional instructions to fix. After three times, usually, they're amazing. And if you're running a smaller model or even local model, it's like pretty much for free. So I'm using the original model to create the overall prompt, then I break it, and then I run it on a much smaller and a more efficient model. That's kind of a pattern
Yeah, yeah.
that we do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're now building a chain of agents, a crew internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will,
Exactly.
let's say, handle marketing content generation. Yeah, and like within that crew, we already have like five or six roles. Yeah, so one guy is like a copywriter, another one is,
Yeah. Exactly.
idea generator, and then there's like a guy who actually, proofreads, and then there's another one who checks if it's consistent. Sometimes those agents they even start fighting with each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like this guy say, hey, you've done a crappy job, so, and then
Yeah.
kicks it back, like,
Yeah.
improve it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Just
the
like
whole
in
thing.
life, right? Yeah. You never take the first thing you write and you send it to the user. Someone usually proofreads and improves it. Yeah. I
Yeah,
think like
yeah.
yeah. I think like we just like need to follow. I think there is a question here actually. Yeah.
There's one question from the audience, one off. Yeah, so
Yeah.
how do you evaluate whether to build native AI features versus integrating external AI services? By the way, that resonates perfectly, with what we're doing. Like I said, we're building AI agents within Albato. Yeah, and we're going to be offering that to other SaaS products. So basically, they will have an option to, let's say, embed a fully native white label AI agents that are running on Albato on a third party. So yeah, the question is whether they can do that or build everything in-house. Yeah, it's always the same, like with integrations with connectors as well. So
Mm. I think it's
what do you
always
think?
a question of flexibility. Do I want maximum flexibility? But that comes, I need now to worry about testing it, quality, and supporting and whatnot, right? Versus, so I think like, if it's a vanilla use case, actually using someone that already wrote, got everything, and maintaining it, all these kind of things. Also, like if it's not super, super core to your thing and you're not doing something unique, you know,
Right. Hmm.
I would check that. On the other hand, if it's simple, like, and you don't need, right? So it's always a combination of what's the effort that it will take me, not just to write it, but like, really productionize it and how much control or IP I want over it, right? These are like, I think, like usually how I think about it.
Yeah, yeah, you're right, totally. Yeah, I think if I'm building an AI agent in the first place, yeah, it doesn't really make sense for me to, you know, uh, let's say buy third-party features. Yeah, because I'm building AI agents in the first place. Yeah, so like that's like the core the core of my product. Yeah, but maybe if it's something like another feature, but the core capability, the core functionality is not AI, but something else, then maybe yeah, just implementing a third party makes more sense. Yeah, because it's faster time to market. Yeah, and basically yeah, less lift on your devs and product teams and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, there's another question. Oh, that's a tricky one. So yeah, we talked about, AI agents becoming more common in SaaS. But what is a good signal that your product is ready for one? Yeah. So are there any red flags for, when it's not the right time
Yeah.
and you shouldn't move forward with let's say, agentifying your business, your product. Yeah.
I think the question is first, like, value, right? Like, I think that, either will this add clear value? Does this solve a problem that moves the needle, right? Like, if you can actually do something that move, if you have this feature, you will acquire, your go-to-market is much more effective. You'll acquire, higher engagement, right? Like you should do it for a reason, just like any other feature that you have on your roadmap, right? Like they should serve a higher goal in a sense. Um, I think some red flags is if you cannot very well define what is good versus bad, right? Like, when you want to build an agent, you need to be able to explain this is what the agent should be, and you should be able to produce here's like 50 examples of good, and here's 50 examples of bad, and here is AI as a judge that can actually give an output, can actually say whether that's good and bad and why. If you cannot do that, it means that you don't have either the necessary understanding or data to actually build a good feature, right? Because you need to be able to measure that the feature actually does what it does, and you need to be able to come and say, hey, it needs to be 99%. And you can always build scaffoldings around it in UI and other ways to address something, if it's not perfect. Um, but if you are not sure what good and bad means and how to measure it, then that means you are not ready for that, as well as how to control for price, how to control for quality, and all of these things, and all privacy, security, to make these are also right. Like you need to think, am I putting the customer at risk or someone else at risk? With adversarial or just like unaware users, right? There is a lot of dangers of putting an agentic thing that can do stuff and access data, in the
Yeah, yeah,
system, right? So I think like, yeah, you need these are all things that you need to think deeply
yeah.
about.
Yeah, because you're right. If you don't have like a very clear vision, yeah, on, what will be improved with AI, yeah, and how you measure it, yeah, and what kind of value will follow, yeah, then it's basically it can do more harm than good,
Yeah.
right? So it can
Yeah.
backfire,
Yeah.
yeah, so to
But don't
speak.
delay trying. Like, I think again, don't delay like trying to do a sandbox, safe environment where you can start putting it to some, design partners, early adopters, right? Like this doesn't mean don't do it. It means don't put it in production. But like I think like you should have like there is a no-brainer that the time to start implementing AI in your product is yesterday. Like if you're starting today, you're already too late. It's just like, just like any other technology new thing, do it in the right way and in a smart way.
Yeah, I think you've just answered the next question. So the question was probably from, smaller, um, not smaller, but companies with limited resource, yeah, and some companies that weren't built as AI first from the beginning. Yeah, so for example, in 2025, yeah, and moving forward, should they just drop everything and let's say switch completely to adding more and more and more AI features and AI agents to their products, even if it's, like gonna, let's say, steal some resource from their core roadmap, something that they had been planning for a while, yeah, before the market really shifted to AI. Or do you think that they should still, keep, building the features that they had before the AI revolution, yeah, and try to, do like everything at the same at the same time, yeah, try to.
Yeah, I think you need to start putting resources into building AI, even on the expense of stuff that yeah. So I would definitely start like, yes, shifting resources. I would also think it like, how to rewrite certain parts. I think that adding integrate, like, are there certain pieces that can be rewritten? Yeah. So yes, in terms of if I have now 10 people working on my product and I cannot afford to add more resources, I would definitely start with moving two. Okay, let me put like, start 20%, start, learning it like, yeah. getting up and starting building the basics. I would not delay that. Yeah, and even if it means that I am slowing 20%, I do think that the risk today for incumbents or players is not that they will not have more feature, but that actually an AI will disrupt them. That's at least my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think that answers all the questions. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think we can wrap up actually. Um, yeah. Do you maybe want to add, like something, like one last advice or, one last thought for everybody, for our audience? Maybe some, a bit of encouragement because a lot of people, these days they're like, maybe frustrated or have that kind of FOMO
Yeah.
that, hey, it's, it's racing too fast and it's
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah, I am happy also to distribute to you, but I actually recently gave a talk for people that want to learn how to use AI in their daily life. And I said, like, my one advice is just don't be afraid to try. The model doesn't judge you. The model doesn't get frustrated or tired when you try again and again and again. It doesn't get angry. And I actually strongly recommend, I actually think that in many ways, enterprise and personal are actually not that far. So I strongly recommend in your personal life, start using AI. It's a very safe, no risk. Try to automate things that are annoying in life using AI as your way to learn it. And again, just don't be afraid to try. And the real magic is ask the AI how to use it. Like just tell it, I want to use you in order to try to plan my trip. Give me 5 ideas how to use you, and then it will come with ideas. I want to use you to improve my shopping or budget control. Give me 5 ways how to do it. I want to use you, to improve my chores. So I think like really start using it on a daily basis and find it, and then I think that's the
yeah.
safest way to learn. So that's what I strongly recommend, and that's like such a, and I think there's so many way learning new languages and shopping, travel, so many ways to use it in our daily life.
Yeah. So as always, start with yourself, right?
Yes.
Start reshaping your own mindset. Yeah. And learning AI every day. And this will have a positive impact on your product and your business and your team and everything else. Maybe one last question. That's my personal. Yeah. I'm just, curious. So what's your model of choice for, let's say, some everyday stuff like Gemini, OpenAI, Claude, uh,
Yeah,
or maybe,
yeah.
like a blend of
I
everything.
use I use all of them. I try, I actually use all of them, and I actually use a lot of. I ask multiple, and then I collect, and I send, each time to others, and say, hey, this is like what I got, from here, from there. Can you actually integrate it all, for slightly more, and create something the best of all. Yeah, I really like Claude. I think that Gemini is becoming, if you want like today to take a very long video and do something with it, Gemini is my choice. I think for coding also Gemini is very good. Deep research, OpenAI is amazing. Handling, so I actually, and it's so easy to use and move between and copy paste from one another. I love artifacts, right? So I actually create, the output of that. Yeah, so like yeah. So I recommend try everything, see which one you like, learn which one is better. Or they have the slightly different styles, different strengths. I don't feel a reason why I need to choose one, to be honest. It's like
Totally agree.
what fruit do you like best?
Yeah.
Depending. Sometimes I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
watermelon, sometimes I like mango. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But I got really addicted with the latest 2.5 Pro
yeah, it's very
preview,
good.
Gemini.
Yeah,
It's just mind blowing. Yeah, but I'm
yeah,
not coding. I
yeah,
just
yeah,
use it to say
yeah, yeah.
generate ideas, or let's say I
Yeah, it's pretty
parse,
good.
and then I feed it to the model trying to structure some data or analyze. I think it's just amazing. Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's you know
yeah, cool.
yeah, perspective. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think it was a great conversation, really insightful. Yeah, and I learned a lot. So thank you so much, Arif. And
Thank you. I learned a lot and I really enjoyed this
yeah,
way.
yeah. all the best. Yeah, with all your
Okay,
investments. Yeah,
thanks.
all your projects, and yeah, keep in touch. And thanks everybody who joined us today. Yeah, so I think we'll do more and more sessions like this going forward. Yeah, and